Okay, so this video is going to be a bit different from my other videos, and it's more personal, in-depth, and maybe something to have a heart-to-heart with and start a discussion about. Granted, while I don't think this specific topic is a refreshing one by any means, I think discussing and bringing awareness about it can be useful and important to an extent, especially with the fact that I'm currently going over some fears and anxieties regarding all of this. I feel like expressing my thoughts and feelings about it could lift a weight off my shoulders. Also, if I sound a bit out of commission, it's because I'm currently going through a cold, but I'm trying my best. I'm hanging in there. But anyway, going back to the topic at hand. When it comes to being part of fandoms, engaging and communicating with other people can help us come together with a particular interest and niche that we're a fan of and very passionate of. But what happens when you indulge in a fandom for so long that you start to get burnt out? How do you deal with the fear of losing that following that you garnered for a specific fandom and niche due to not only burnout but also indulging into another fandom and niche? How are you able to express emotionally and mentally without getting shunned and shamed for getting burnt out? And all of these kind of questions to ask about. I feel like we're going to be here for many hours, but hey, strap yourselves in for a wild ride. Anyway, cue the intro. So with my own personal experiences regarding the various fandoms that I've surrounded myself, well, it's all about variety. And as a creator and artist, I tend to indulge myself in a niche of discussing about animation, art, and/or an over-the-top internet niche. Overall, I'm such an internet junkie to say the least. When it comes to the fandoms that I've been in, I like to express my love and passion for them through art, videos, and/or even discussing and yapping about them, and even discussing the topic of fandom burnout and the mental health aspect of it. It's something that I tend to have a passion in raising awareness for. Also, for full transparency, as much as I want to spread more awareness regarding this topic, I don't think of the approach in making more than one video about a specific issue, especially for a topic like this, is good or healthy in my opinion. I mean, no matter how much I want to vocalize this issue, I can't even feel the burnout of talking about it over and over again. But nonetheless, and apologies if this comes off as repetitive and redundant, but I think for me to be open and come clean about how I experience fandom burnout can, like I said earlier, help me lift off the weight on my shoulders, if that says anything. Again, like I prefaced in the beginning of this video, fandoms are a great way to engage, communicate, and come together with other people regarding a certain interest and niche that we're a fan and very passionate of, and express our creative outlets such as fan art, fan fiction, and cosplays, just to name a few. But when it comes to feeling burnt out from indulging and over-consuming a fandom, all that I, and maybe also a few people, can think about is how to address and come clean about my feelings, mental health, and desire to move on to another interest and niche without my followers and community shaming and disowning me for doing so. Or maybe even worse, the thought of losing followers for leaving a specific fandom because I came out clean about being burnt out. Now, I'm not someone who has 1,000 or million followers by any means, but I think it's more like when people treat you like a god and or put you on a pedestal. That's not healthy to me. Like, I am a human being just like you, and I am another person indulging in various fandoms and outlets online just like you. Now, I'll understand if the thought of losing followers for leaving a fandom after coming clean with experiencing burnout might sound silly and hyperbolic, if you will, but there are some people, not everybody, but a few, who do act like that, and the thought of getting backlash from them because you want to break from a fandom and prioritizing your mental health and well-being terrifies me sometimes. And to live in that kind of fear kind of sucks. So while the overall topic of this video is about fandom burnout and what to do if you do lose followers for leaving a specific fandom, if you will, I'm now going to segue this bit in talking about a few of the fandoms that I've been in that gave me burnout. The first fandom that I want to go over is the My Little Pony fandom, specifically My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. This may or may not shock you, but I had dabbled onto My Little Pony Friendship is Magic back in the early days of my internet life, and the content that I was making for the show and fandom back then consists of wallpapers and doing base art on DeviantArt. Making fan art for the show was out of my league. I couldn't draw a proper pony for the life of me. Where I first had a burnout moment was back in late August 2015, and around that time I was doing the base art stuff where I did like ponified versions of characters from other pieces of media. During that time I did like ponified versions of Hiro Hamada and Wasabi from Big Hero 6, Timon from The Lion King, and Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet. Guys, I had like a mad Disney phase during the mid to late 2010s. I think you had to be there, but then again, maybe don't. I was also a bit of a nightmare during that period. Some were either requests or commissions, and some were done on my own free will. But I think when it came to the amount of favorites and engagement that I was getting for those pieces on DeviantArt, it motivated me to get more of that stuff out. It was more of like quantity over quality. Even the amount of art requests that I've received during that time was absolutely overwhelming, to the point that I had to detox and put that to a stop. In retrospect, I think I got excited and carried away with the creative output that I went through around that time, as it was a way to get a bit more consistent with my work and showcase my art skills. While I understand that there are people who don't want me to rush art and perfection, again, the amount of favorites and engagement that I was receiving for making that kind of art was like my dopamine rush, to where I wanted to improve and showcase my art skills more. But at the same time, the control was more with quantity than quality. I even made a statement on my DeviantArt that because of the engagement that I received from the My Little Pony fandom was becoming big around that time, I wanted to be known to those who follow me for my fan content regarding that fandom that not everything that I create is going to have a core focus of the things that you happen to follow me for, and that there's more to my content than just My Little Pony, Sonic, Disney, etc. Now, were there a few followers that got the hint? I think it's possible. And were there a few followers that felt dissatisfied because their creator said, oh, I can't be doing XYZ all the damn time, to where they unfollowed said creator? That I can't remember, but like I said before, there are some people who do act like that, and regardless of the community and following that you have, it's kind of terrifying to think about being brushed off just because you vocalized about not being exclusive and limited to one fandom. As much as that incident was overwhelming, and even if I had to detox from all of that, it didn't make me want to leave or go on an indefinite hiatus from the fandom. I was still watching the show at that point up until mid to late 2016 while season 6 was going on. I kind of lost interest with the show and I was already dabbling onto other things. Though regardless if I would like fully come back to the fandom, I will forever acknowledge the show and its fandom being an integral part of my internet life. The next fandom that gave me burnout is the Zootopia fandom, and oh boy, I'd argue that the way I had to deal with it was worse than how I dealt with being burnt out in the My Little Pony fandom. Also, it can't be a Hana-chan video, art piece, post, and whatnot if I don't mention Zootopia. Of all the Disney films during my Disney era in the mid to late 2010s, Zootopia is, without a doubt, one of my magnum opuses throughout my internet life, and to this very day, I still can't fathom how a film that I wasn't even hyped for yet still wanted to watch got me out of a really dark place prior to it being released, and inspired and motivated me to take digital art and drawing seriously. Going over the quantity of drawings that I've done during the early days of the fandom and overall being consistent and hands-on with my work, the engagement and following that I was receiving back then was also like a dopamine rush for me, especially considering the fact that this was my kind of high I had to go through once I got out of my depressive episode. But nonetheless, with taking digital art and drawing seriously around that period, I wanted to shift the focus of my content with movies and video games, really anything regarding animation. And as much as I'm grateful for Zootopia and its fandom leading me to where I am now, at the same time, I can't just be the Zootopia girl forever. Like, if anything, I'm such a black and white thinker. Like, on one hand, if I had to be exclusively known as the Zootopia girl and maybe nothing else when it comes to my content, I would fucking scream and throw up. And on the other hand, I want my contributions for Zootopia to be seen as me developing a niche and interest for another Disney film, since again, making content for other Disney films such as Moana, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, Lilo and Stitch, and Wreck-It Ralph, just to name a few. Making content for other Disney films, that was my forte back then, and still kinda is. I can acknowledge Zootopia being the commercial hit, if you will, of my content, but it's also important for me to acknowledge my overall Disney roots and remember where I came from at that time. Like, I want to be inclusive in that kind of realm regarding the other films when it comes to my contributions to the Disney fandom as a whole. I even said to myself half a decade ago that a life where I drew Nick and Judy every so often would be boring. 5 years later, I still share that same sentiment. It would be fucking boring. And no matter how many times I vocalize in wanting to venture other things outside of Zootopia, then and now, sometimes I would feel like no one wants to hear me out, and instead of listening, there are some people who still want me to do Zootopia stuff only. Like, it makes me feel trapped. And even when I get a sense of relief from a few people encouraging me to go on to new horizons, I still feel like I can't escape from being the Zootopia girl. So I started experiencing Zootopia burnout during mid-2020, and in the midst of it, I was contemplating on whether or not I should take a hiatus from it indefinitely. For me to ever take a hiatus, all that I could think of is, would my followers and friends think that I was stupid and selfish for doing so? But once I announced that I was taking a break from Zootopia to go on to new horizons, I felt like I lifted off the weight on my shoulders. And even then, the baggage was still there. The baggage of going through the depression that I went through prior to the film's release all over again, and I never showed this vulnerable side of me whenever I talk about my love for Zootopia until then and now, within this decade so far. Jesus, I'm like losing my voice at this point. After 2020, I would dabble onto Zootopia again for a few occasions, but I had to go through things differently and reduce my hyperactive energy, if you will, compared to how I was back then. And regardless of the decisions I made and will make, I no longer cared for losing a few followers just because I left the fandom, and regardless of my following and community, I will never be diminished for venturing onto other outlets. Which actually leads to my next point with some anxieties and fears that I've been experiencing lately with how I want to present myself for the Zootopia fandom with the sequel on its way next year. Like, on one hand, I'm absolutely looking forward to it, and on the other hand, I still have times where I need to back out for the sake of my mental health and well-being and go into the sequel with low expectations at the moment. I can guarantee you that I'm excited. I'm just expressing my excitement in a way that doesn't make it sound like I'm a hyperactive child that consumed so many bags of sugar, and maybe not shoving down my Zootopia bias and latent favoritism too much and just going into the film like the Disney fanatic that I am. Like, I was 15 when the first film came out. I'm 24 now, and I'm going to be 25 when the sequel comes out next year. Jesus fucking Christ, I hate it here. I know we've been talking about fandom burnout a lot in this video and my experiences with it, so I don't know if this certain bit would count as such, but I want to maybe take this opportunity to talk about these specific feelings and emotions when going into 2025, I guess. I do have some hard stuff planned for 2025 regarding Zootopia and also The Bad Guys, since these two are getting sequels released in the same year. Gosh, what a world we live in. But overall, I do want to continue drawing things that I've done before and things that I've never done before. Really, I still want to go onto other ventures and having a passionate niche for them, since that has always been my goal and passion as a creator and artist, and also as a human being. So to those who've been following me since the early days of the Zootopia fandom, I promise you that I'll still get around doing Zootopia stuff, and that Zootopia is still going to be a part of me. I just don't think I could see myself doing more of it in recent years compared to how I did it in the previous decade, let alone how the control back then was more of quantity over quality. Nor could I see myself continuing that in the next decade or so, unless, I don't know, Disney announces a third installment for Zootopia. And maybe a great opportunity to say that to some of those who are going to act like it's the end of the world that I'm not dabbling with Zootopia stuff like I used to, I can guarantee you that you're still going to survive without me doing so, and I just want to focus on other stuff right now. Zootopia and survive are two words that shouldn't be in the same sentence, but fuck it. I think the opportunity was there to say it. I don't think I'm safe either, even after making that video back in April. And if you stuck with me since the beginning and have seen me grow, change, and evolve as not just a creator and artist, but also a human being, thank you. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And if there's anything that I like to see in 2025 when it comes to creators and artists as human beings, that would be change, growth, and evolution. Let your voices and creativity be heard and seen, and please do what you love and what makes you happy. I suppose the conclusion of this video is this: if you're a creator who's burnt out and or is going through burnout, you have every right to take a step back and prioritize your mental health and well-being first. And whether you want to return to your fandoms, hobbies, and niches, or maybe put them in hibernation, if you will, indefinitely, that's up for you to decide. If you're a follower of a creator that happens to have the same interests and niches as you, and they're the reason why you follow them to begin with, if your favorite creator decides to dabble onto other things outside of what you followed them for specifically, it's up for you to decide on whether or not you still want to stick around with them. But please know that behind the creation, they're a human being just like you and I. And if your favorite creator expresses the need to dabble onto other things, that they can't be and do XYZ all the time, and that could lead to potential retaliation just because your favorite creator expressed that way, if you're going to be a bitch at them for doing so, maybe better that you don't. It's probably one thing to unfollow a creator because they're not dabbling on the niche that you follow them for like they used to, but anyone who act like pissy crybabies as a way to retaliate those who are going onto different ventures are people that I do not want to tolerate with at all. Like, yeah, maybe I won't be too mad if I lose some followers because I want to try out new things, but if you're going to come at me about it with a shitty attitude, I won't miss you at all. With all of that being said, thank you so much for watching and making it all the way to the end of this video. If you like this video, feel free to hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, feel welcome to subscribe if you wish. Don't forget to check out my social media platforms in the description below. Feel welcome to share this video, and finally, feel welcome to share in the comments on whether or not you've dealt with fandom burnout, and if so, what's your experiences with it. That's the end of the video. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. Drink some water. I know for a fact that I should get some water after recording all of this. Please be kind to each other, and I think this will be my last video of 2024, so I'll see you again in 2025. Goodbye for now, and happy holidays. And a happy new year.